Good evening. I'm sorry. Hey kids, Adam here. Welcome to my first live stream. I see that Mike from Let's Talk About Reapers here, so now's the time to start. Uh, who do I have out there? It's the first time I've done this in this format. I have a indoor soccer live stream I've been doing for about a year, and it's completely different because it's interactive and there's three of us that do the stream. So this is going to be me talking to myself and you guys. And I don't know what the delay is on the chat for YouTube, but it's probably 5-10 seconds or so. Tonight we're going to be going over the mix to my band's latest song, Strange. Band is Underground Hive. Link is in the description of the video to my band's YouTube page. I can say it now. I'm going to release it officially on Friday, but album will be released 1 month from today, April 30th. 9 tracks, culminating 4 years of recording and writing songs and going through all sorts of stuff. Mike likes coffee. Mike, I like Coca-Cola, but I don't really like coffee, so what can I say? So we have 3 people watching. 3 people watching the video, not 3 people watching. Something like that. So, what do the polls do on St. Patrick's Day? They hold up the wires. I always liked that one. I got in trouble in high school telling that joke. English teacher had a Friday afternoon joke, last 5 or 10 minutes of class on a Friday. She would tell jokes and then let some of the kids go around and tell jokes. That's where I got the brick joke. If you haven't seen that one, I don't have a way to do a card in here, but it's in one of my videos. Joke compilation video is probably the best one to look at. And I'll be doing another one of those soon because it is the end of March coming up. But she told a joke, somebody had told a joke, and some kid just completely off-color ethnic joke. And she went on a rant for about 2 minutes about how that's inappropriate. We shouldn't be telling those kind of jokes and this and that. She's like, all right, do we have any end the week on a good note? Anybody have a good joke? And I raised my hand and I'm like, what do the polls do on St. Patrick's Day? And she like glares at me. She's like, Adam, what did I just say? And I said, they hold up the wires. That's all I got. All right, let's jump into Reaper here so you don't have to look at me for any longer. And wait for Reaper to sync up. Let me just start by playing the song. And you can hear it beginning to end. It's, 4.5, 5 minutes long. And it'll give me something to do while we wait for more people to come in. So here we go. All right, so sounds like something's ducking the mics. I turned off the ducking compressor, and I added a noise gate to the mic. How much, Mike? How much? Speaking of Mike, how much of that were you able to hear? Do you want me to play it over, or should I just get into it? Probably should just get into it. But wait a couple seconds for an answer here. Product placement. And hello to the other two viewers, one of which may or may not be me, because I have this up on two different machines, but I may be talking to myself. All right, so let's start with the drums here. I'll just play a little bit of the drums alone. We'll see how they sound with the mic and all the other things going on. So we start with the kick. And apparently I need to set all my plugins to be this. All right. Apologies in advance for any weird windows flying up and all over the place. I have, this is usually a 4K monitor, and I've taken it down to 1080p so you guys can actually see what's going on here. First thing I do on my kick is a Pultec trick. So I put the boost and the attenuation about the same. And this one I wanted more thump, so I put it up more to 5 instead of usually I do it at 2 or 3. Doing what turns out to be the same type of thing with the highs, and then also attenuating some of the highs here. I don't know how much this actually adds to the kick, but I had it from a preset from another track and I just kind of kept it. Why is this so big? Shouldn't apply as default to all do an actual apply as default to all, or is Waves gonna just screw me here? All right, looks better. For the kick, I'm using the 1073 because I felt guilty of watching somebody do a video and put the 1073 on a kick, and I liked the way it sounded. I decided to give it a try. I actually have a new method of doing kick, which is going to be using the SSL channel and using a lot of that 8K band. Here I did like a 3.5 dB boost at this 7200K, a little bit of the highs and a low boost at 60 hertz here. No high pass filter, and then I cranked up the input gain and matched the output gain to match. I like the DBX 160 compressor on kick, and I just start with a standard bass drum preset and just go from there. I've been fighting this noise. It's supposed to add like analog goodness, but it really just adds hiss, so I left it off for this one. Then I needed to do some more. I wanted to get some frequencies out of here. So band 1 here is as disabled. Band 5 is I'm taking a little bit out at 50 because there's some rumbling going on, and then I use this to cut 120 out of my bass. You'll see I bump the bass at 120, and then I usually bump the kick at 60, and I cut the bass at 120. Then I added in this SK10, which is a sub kick stimulator, and then of course I added Kramer tape. So I think I can do before and after all the plugins on the kick. Hopefully this is coming through. So one thing I didn't do on the kick here is I did not put a gate on it. I felt that the frequencies that were coming in weren't harsh enough, even when compressed, to kill the sound, so I left it there. Normally I'll use either multi-band gate or regate or Wilkinson depleter, depending on just the kick and the way it sounds, to kind of get that off there. And then I have 3 different sends that I use. I use a parallel compression, which is my P drum send here. I use a clipper, which adds distortion. I use max bass, which is similar to that sub bass. And I use a drum punch, and I'll go through each one of those here separately. So on the parallel compression, this will have all of the instruments in it. We're still at 150%, so apologies for the giant plugin sizes. So the first thing I do is I put Kramer HLS just for a preamp. So I crank the preamp all the way up. I crank the input gain up a bunch so that it can get, just kind of smashes it. And I don't adjust the output volume here. And next I use the SSL compressor. This is one of my favorite compressors for things like bus compression, drum bus, and then parallel compression. So I set kind of a standard setting and just put a whole shitload of makeup gain and bring the threshold way down. And you'll see it's like just completely annihilating this. And then I'll put an EQ on, so I don't want a lot of the highs to come in. Let me play it before and after the EQ to see what this is taking out. So parallel compression, I don't really want to compress that rumble. I want it to get more of the hits in there. And then there was a weird frequency here, like 280, that I wanted to take out. And then I just took some of the top end out in case there were cymbal bleeds or anything coming through. And then I killed it with a limiter. And again, I mean, this is just 12, 15, 18 dB of gain reduction. And I will send my snare and my kick always go to the parallel compression. Sometimes the toms do, depending on the recording. This recording I did not send those over because I thought they sounded, looks like I sent, yes, oh, I did send them over. I'm just reading the wrong tracks because I blame it on 1080p. Mike, I blame it on you too because of coffee or something. So that's the parallel compressor. I'll get to the rest of the drums here in a second. Let me go through the clipper. This is basically just saturation, and I put the shells into it. Sometimes I do, and in this one I did not put the tom, so this is just snare and kick. I use the Abbey Road saturator here. I did some SSL channel to get a little bit of compression, like a 20-to-1 ratio, and a couple, boost a couple frequencies, and then I slammed it with a limiter again. So I'll do, let's play just this track. Not adding a lot of distortion, but it's just a little bit, and when you blend that in, it just kind of blends into the kit really nicely. The max bass is just like a sub bass thing, so this is going to be just the R bass. I set it at 60 hertz and I brought down the intensity a ways. Adding that kind of kind of sound of the kick. And then we have the drum punch. I learned this one from Brandon Heyer, who does, his channel is the Noise Floor AV, and he does a mix minute series where he went through a whole bunch of drums, parallel settings, and I kind of just stole a bunch from him. What this is doing, this is essentially just boosting up all the transients so that the peaks are more, and then I'm boosting two EQ bands here, one at for kind of the bassy frequencies like the kick at 80, and one for kind of the snarey frequencies. Snarey, is that a word? At 1K, and then again hitting with a limiter, just to kind of tame off the rest of them. This low one sounds like this. Not adding a whole lot, just adding a little ping here and a little like definition on the kick. And that's it for the kick. So let's move on to the snare. If you guys have seen my videos, you know I struggle with snare drum. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like a personal thing where the snare just hates me. Let me just turn off all the. Here's what I was doing with the raw snare, and then turn off all these. Turn it way up. So it sounds terrible. We had no bottom snare mic. We did have one, and it just was so bad that it didn't work. Definitely 100% a miking and problem on the way in. I want to try to use my real drums as much as possible, especially with my drummer. He uses a lot of like ghost notes, and I'll play some of those for you a little bit later. But he uses a lot of ghost notes and things between the hi-hat and the snare that he does that just get lost. And then there's a ton of hi-hat bleed on these things. So the first thing I did was put in this multi-band gates. Let me crank the volume here again. So that really takes off a lot of those, a lot of that bleed. I was able to get a lot of it out of there, and there was just enough ghost note that were coming through. Next thing I did, because it is a no bottom snare, I added the snare buzz plugin. Do this for volume. I'll just crank the drum bus up. So that adds a snare to it, you know, kind of that marching snare sound. Next thing, it was 1073. Get over here. And for this, I did a bunch of the highs. I did like a 5 dB at this like magic 12K band. I did another one at the 7.2K, again a 5 dB. And then I boosted some 220, almost 5 dB, and then I put a high pass filter on it, and then cranked up the input. So with this on, now it's starting to sound more like a snare. And there was one frequency in here right in the mids that really bugged me. I'll take this out, in and out. You can kind of hear this like ringy, weird thing. Just kind of cleans it up a little bit. DBX 160 works great on snare as well. And I put this, the dB meter doesn't really read the same as a normal gain reduction meter on a lot of compressors. So you'll see this hitting 10 to 15 dB gain reduction. Just gives it that pop. And then double hit this with saturation. JS Saturation 100% is an amazing plugin. I'll play this again off and on. And then Kramer tape. So then I ran it through all of my sends. So we have the drum, the parallel compression, which is going to add a bunch of volume to this. Let me turn this back down. The clipper, which you heard already. The drum punch, which you heard already. I'll play with just those three. And then I run it through an exciter channel, and this, let me play just the exciter channel here. This I run snare, toms, and overheads through, and this is the wrong monitor. Sorry. This is the Waves Vintage exciter. I kind of just took a default and played with knobs until it sounded decent, and then I hit it with some EQ just to take off the bottom and top end. So just the exciter channel. Apparently. Crank this volume up. So what this can do is this can add, the exciter can add high frequency or high harmonics in without adding frequencies and without introducing phase issues. I like to put that on a lot of different things. Snare is a perfect example for it. And then I have two verbs. I'll just turn these on because they're going to be hard to hear alone. I have a gated verb, kind of almost the 80s kind of sound, and then a regular plate verb. So here's the snare with everything on it. I did go through and try to replace this with EZdrummer, and what I do on every single one of my songs, I get stuck replacing it and then wind up just putting it back to normal, and using the original. So I think it sounds decent. It doesn't sound bad enough that it takes it away, but I think we need maybe a support group for people who don't know how to use some snare drums and know how to get snare drum sounds, and I'll join if anyone's in. All right, toms are next, and I gate these and I EQ these and compress these separately because I just find, especially the floor tom, my drummer doesn't hit the same as the hi-hat rack toms. So instead of putting these on a bus and doing it there, I'll just do them separately. Let me find a good place where there's a good fill here. Beginning, probably. You can hear a weird buzz in the floor tom. So what I did I'll just show you one of these. Multiband gate again by AIX DSP. And then I have just some standard EQ, low pass, high pass. I do a bump where if I play this hit, kind of where this EQ curve comes in, I'll put a bump there. I do a cut where it sounds kind of boxy, and I'll do another boost for attack. And then I just hit it with the DBX 160 for compression. And then for sends, I'll send it to my parallel compressor, my exciter, and then a verb to kind of just give that big tom sound. Here's a good drum fill here. And there's a lot of bleed from the floor tom because there's a crash right above it, and who cares? Overheads. Let me just bring this up this way. I'll hit them with some EQ. What I've done in there's a lot of phase issues you can introduce with overheads, especially with overheads and snare and a room mic. So what I'll do is I'll take a high pass filter at anywhere from 300 to almost 500 hertz and just kill all those low frequencies. I don't have to worry about killing any mud out. I don't have to worry about interfering with either the kick or the snare. And I just do that. And then I do a boost here at 3500 and then another one like an 8K, just a 2 dB boost. I've gone back and forth between shelves and regular bands on these, and I think it sounds better with this kit in this recording. We recorded like the last 5 or 6 songs with this setup. It sounds better with a band than it does a high shelf. SSL Comp is a great little compressor for overheads. And then of course I had a Kramer tape, and I just copy and paste from one track to the other. And then I send it to the exciter and I send it to some verbs. So again, the overheads. And I really just want to get the cymbals and maybe a little ping here from the snare. The next big one is my room mic. And let me turn off everything here. See what the volume is. It sounds just like a regular, like a center room mic, center overhead, if you will. What I've done, and I have a video on this, if you want to look it up, you can take a look what I do. I throw a whole bunch of effects on here. I start with the 1073 waves. I'm cursing you. See this where it says apply as default to all? This apparently means apply as default to fuck all. So anyway, 1073, a little bit of preamp, and that's really all I'm doing. Nothing else is going on, and then I just crank the output gain and crank the input gain, lower the output gain to match. This kind of gives it an analog thing. Not a lot of difference between this off and on. Next one I do is the HLS, and I do almost the same thing I did with the parallel compression for the drums. Put the preamp all the way up, crank up the output level to match. Kind of match. And then where it really comes in, I hammer this with the Kramer tape, and this will just obliterate the sound. You can hear everything kind of distorting in there. Here's where I need to turn this back down. Hit it with 1176 with a lot of compression on it. You see I'm getting over 10 dB of gain reduction here. And you notice the cymbals are now kind of getting out of control. So I put a high pass filter up at 100 hertz, a low pass filter, it's anywhere between 2 and 4K or so. This one's 2700. And that'll take out the harshness of the cymbals. And it makes it kind of sound far away. And then I add the Abbey Road saturator on. The point of this, I'm using the need that drum hit every time you tell a dad. I need to set up like an instant rim shot. By the way, Mike, what's leather and sounds like a sneeze? A shoe. Anyway, I can't help myself. The whole point of this track, I should have kind of gone on this first, is to use the room mic as almost this like big, huge, reverby, chamberish sound. You can get away with using a lot of reverbs and things on it, but I find this way makes the drums just sound big, like that old Zeppelin sound, or the old like Sabbath when they recorded in the mansion, in the foyer of the mansion and things like that. Maybe that was Zeppelin. That was Zeppelin. Sabbath. One of them recorded in the bathroom, one of them recorded, whatever. Anyway, with the saturator off, and I'll turn it on, you can see what this sounds like. It makes it sound like you're like a couple blocks down from the club. You can hear the music coming through. And then I hit it with what I call my verb long, and I'll show you that later when I get to my sends. And I just do 100% of this send. It's I believe it's let me cheat and let me look. Verb long is actually true verb from Waves with, where'd it go here? Oh, it's a cathedral hall setting. So I have no idea what I'm talking about. You guys haven't figured that out already. I don't know what to say. So with that on, and let me just play the whole kit with everything on, and then I'll mute the room mic and bring it in halfway through. If you're listening to this on a phone, you won't notice a difference. You have to have like monitors or earbuds or headphones or whatever. It just kind of opens it up and it gives a new depth to it. All right, so that is the drums. There was something I said I was going to show you, and I don't know if I showed it to you or not, so we'll just skip it. There is a clapping part in the bridge here. What I did is I went to EZdrummer and I took two different drum sets, their clapping sounds, and as you can see, I just rendered them out to Waves here. This, I think I posted this in one of the groups. If I zoom way in here, so the cursor's right now on the beat, and this is how far behind the beat the claps are. My drummer loves to play behind the beat, and I don't want to time align him because I love the sound that we're a funk band. We're trying to get that behind the beat, behind everything thing going on. And during this part, what I did for recording it is I took just a measure of the drums or a couple measures of the drums and looped them so that the guitarist could play a solo along to this. Because in this part, it is the guitar chicken wah outro part. And it reminded me of chicken songs, so I call it Guitar Chicken. And we needed something to be able to follow the beat, so we put a drums there. And I had to line up the claps, and I kind of caused some people OCD by showing a piano roll with all the notes just slightly off the beat, just so they could feel it. But it feels really good. So I rendered these out to Waves because I didn't want to mess with EZdrummer on the final thing, and I sent it to both of my reverbs. So if I solo these again, I'll turn the reverbs off and then bring them one at a time. There's a little bit of reverb from what EZdrummer is putting in. And then my short reverb and my long. And all by themselves, you can really hear that tail come in and, you know, kind of every single time. And it kind of just makes it, you know, the guitar washes out that stuff, so you don't really hear it anyway. Let's move on to the bass. So what do we want to play for the bass? I have two different tracks here because, and I'll show you, I'll do both parts here. So I'll just start in the verse. One other thing I want to mention, on my drum bus, I will put a reverb, but I will put it, actually, let's go through the whole drum bus, sorry. This is one of those things where in the videos you won't see it because I'll like cut it out and maybe put a blooper beep in at the end. This is my drum bus, and we'll solo out the drums, turn them off, and I'll bring in each plugin. I do it this way. Bring in each plugin as I go on. So I do some EQ. I do a little bump at 260. Kind of brings in the snare and a little bit of low end. And I do a high shelf at 5K. And then SSL comp. Mike, let me know if you can't hear my vocals over the music because I don't have the ducking compressor on anymore. This is just a standard 4-to-1 basic setup. I'm not doing a whole lot of gain reduction here. You know, 2, maybe 3 dB at the highest part. And then of course Kramer tape, because I love Kramer tape. And then I add a reverb, but you probably can't hear it. And the theory behind I add reverb on every one of my instruments. I'll add it on the drum bus, I'll add it on my bass bus, I'll add it on various guitars, I'll even add it on my main vocals, even though I'm using other reverbs. And the theory behind that is to get it in, it kind of sounds like everyone's in the same room then. And if you think about what a room sounds like, especially like a practice room or a concert, there's not a whole lot of verb on the drums, but there is more as you move into other instruments. That's my drum bus. Go on to the bass bus. I do the same thing with the reverb. I won't even do it before and after because I doubt you'll be able to hear it. But I do use the Kramer HLS, and I use this, a little bit of the preamp, and then I do 2 dB bump at this 700 hertz kind of mids range. And then I will output, I'll do a, I actually had to bring it down the input. So I hit them about 0 on the VU meter. So I'll go here. Or in this case, just cranking out the VU meter. Either way. As long as it's not really clipping and not killing it, I'm good with that. So then on the actual channel, so the first thing I do for bass is I do EQ. I do a high pass filter anywhere from 30, almost sometimes all the way up to where the kick is at about 60. Then I do my bump, which is almost always 120, especially with this bass, which is this guy behind me. I'll do a cut somewhere around 300 hertz, and that'll be where it sounds boxy and kind of cheap. And let me it sounds cheap is the best word for it. And I take a little bit out there. And I do 2 bumps for attack. This one happened to be just over 1K. This one is just under 4K. And then, as I mentioned before with the kick, I will cut out wherever the kick is. I'll cut out on bass. I'm actually taking a lot out. I'm taking about 6 dB out at 60 hertz here. Next is I double stack 1176 compressors. I'll do 3-ish dB of gain reduction and set it up with just there's a bass preset, even though this is like the easiest thing ever. I like the Bluey versus the Blackie just because I like the way it sounds, and then I'll double stack them and with the same exact settings just to make sure I'm getting that 3 to 4 dB of gain reduction there. JS saturation, because why not? And then Kramer tape. So Kramer tape has 2 really, really good presets. And if I go into this at the right thing, Let's see. So if you go into bass, there's clean bass DI, which works really well on um, thing. What sounds weird is it works well on things you want distorted because you're adding distortion in other places and you want a clean signal to go into there, or it works really well on slap bass. This dirty bass DI works really well on things you want, like that old P bass sound, like that old Motown, James Jamerson, the meters, your typical P bass funk sound. So I'll play it before and after just the Kramer tape. And it's almost distorted. You can kind of hear it break up a little bit, especially if it's louder. But I just leave that on that preset on, and I dial in the input and output gain to get to level match. So that's my main bass. I do have there's a slap part in here. Make sure you guys can see all this. So I run into a Countryman DI, Countryman 85 DI, and that's my absolute clean signal. And then I run into, I don't know if I'll be able to show this to you, it's all cabled up here. I have a tone hammer, Aguilar tone hammer DI pedal. So what I'll usually do is I'll split my signal, absolute 100% clean will go in through the Countryman, and then I'll run through my pedal board and into the Aguilar tone hammer into this, and I'll split those out into 2 tracks. So that's what these 2 tracks are in this section here. So we'll do the wah one first because wah is cool and all. And thank you for showing up on the wrong monitor. Appreciate that. Hey Mike, it's time for a joke. 2 guys were convicted of stealing a calendar. They both got 6 months. So bass is very similar here to because it's the same bass, and it's going into when I record just a flat straight track, even though I call it bass DI, it's running through my Aguilar DI and not my Countryman because I want the Aguilar color on there. I really like the way that sounds. I own the Aguilar Tone Hammer 500 amp, and the same electronics from the preamp pedal and the amp. I've actually been able to do a live recording at our practice space on the amp and punch in through the pedal and have no noticeable difference. So very similar EQ here. High pass filter. In fact, what I do is I always copy my EQs over, and I'll only adjust if I need to. This one I did not adjust at all, so it stayed the same. Compressors are the same with the CLA 76 double stacked saturation and the Kramer tape, but you notice I use the clean bass DI because I'm affecting it. I want this wah to come through very clean. So here is just the wah sound with I'll do before and after all the effects. And that is what is the name of this thing? Source Audio Soundblocks Pro multi-bass envelope filter. Sorry, I don't know the names of my own pedals. Shame on me. At some point, and maybe soon, I keep saying this, I'm going to do a bass walkthrough of all my basses around here and what each one sounds like and what they look like and show them up to the camera, and they'll be all cool looking. Then I'm also going to do a pedal board walkthrough where I show you all my pedals and what I do. So what I did then is I have this bass wah DI signal, which is just a clean bass. It's the same settings, probably copied and pasted. This time I use the dirty bass DI, and this is what this track sounds like. And I use that for more body. A lot of wah pedals, especially a lot of bass effects pedals, can wash out and lose your low end. And these Source Audio pedals are really good. I mean, they're things like this big, and there's way more settings than my tiny brain can handle. But they're really good at being able to dial in your low signal. When I play live, I don't do anything like this. But for recording, I decided to bring both in, and them both together is sounds like this. I do, for some reason, the Countryman is out of phase with everything, perfectly 180%, so, or 180 degrees, not percent, that'd be weird. So I flip the phase on that as well. So here's the slap bass with both things on it. So that's that. When I record, I usually record the clean bass a measure or so into the slap part, and I'll start recording the slap part a measure or so before it really starts, and then I'll just kind of blend those. You can kind of see, there's a couple notes here. One note that I'm hitting at the same time. Depending on the part, I may blend it a little bit more, especially if it's from a fingerstyle to a slap part, because a lot of times I'll do like a fingerstyle and I'll kind of get into maybe a double thump and then slap when I'm doing a live. You can't really replicate that in a recording all that well, and I want to be able to process them separately. That's bass. Next up is guitars. All about that bass. That bass. I don't like that song. I don't know what. I just don't like that song. So, did you know Australia's biggest export is boomerangs? It's also their biggest import. All right. Guitars. We have a number of guitars, and as you can see here, and what else you can see, number of different guitar sounds. So we have this sound. We have this sound. And we have this sound. Some cool guitar stuff there. I'll start with the kind of the main one here. So this was recorded with an SM57 and a Rode. He has RTK written down here. I think it's an NTK on a what the hell is the name of his amp? It's some boutique, super expensive, crazy amp. Two Rock, that's the name of it. And I mean, it sounds great with no processing on it. Let me turn off all of the processing just with the reverb on it. So what I do first is I process the main track, or the main bus. So, back to the mic. So we have actually 2 channels for the left and 2 channels for the right. I did have to do a little bit of phase alignment, where I just zoomed in and lined up the waves to make sure they were lined up, so we weren't having any weird phase, because the mics weren't perfectly in place. But that wasn't a really big deal. On the bus itself, I run this 1073, which is magic. This 1.6K band is like this magical guitar band. And I put 3 dB of mids on there. I did a little bit of highs, 2.5. I did the preamp. I did a high pass filter. I'll go between 80 and 160 depending on what it sounds like, depending on everything else that's going in. This isn't really a deeper guitar. There's no palm muting or anything, so I was able to get rid of more. And the more high pass filter you can do, the more room you have for other things to go through. And then, of course, Kramer tape. I just took a rhythm electric guitar setting and then took the record and playback levels to level match. So before and after these two. Brings out a little bit more definition, makes it pop just a little bit more. And then I add all the guitars to what I call my short reverb, which is my room reverb. And then we get into each channel here. Oh, I can bring these up side by side. So left channel's on top, right channel's on the bottom. I'm using this. So funny story, and if Dylan watches this, he'll catch on to what I've been doing for a while. I usually use a graphical EQ, like or whatever the term for it is, like RIA EQ or Renaissance EQ or REEQ or there's like the Waves Q series EQs. There's all those, fab filter types. The problem is when I show him what the EQ curve looks like, he tells me he hears things. So he'll say, I can hear too much of that being scooped, so you have to undo that because it's too much scooped, and I can hear it. So what we did is we used a graphical EQ that has way too many knobs that I almost can't figure out here what's going on. So what I did is I did a low mids. I did on the left side, I found this 820 hertz sounded really good, so I gave it a 3 dB bump. And then on the right guitar, I liked this 1.5K, so I gave it a 3 dB bump. And on the opposite ones, I cut by 3 dB. So I cut here 1.5K and I boosted here at 820. And what that'll do is it'll give 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. No, it'll give 6 dB of separation on each of those frequencies between the left and right speaker. It'll make it sound wider. And then I hit both with this LA2A because there's 2 knobs and it's really stupid easy to be able to figure out. And I don't hit much on it. Let me make sure I got both of these on. Let me attempt to turn on the effects first. I'm really just hitting peaks here. I mean, distorted guitar is compressed anyway. This is kind of just adding a little bit more and taming those peaks when he's hitting it real hard. And then what I do is I have a right reverb and a left reverb, which are just copies of my room reverb, panned 100% left and right. And what I'll do is I'll send my left guitars to the right reverb and my right guitars to the left reverb so that you get an opposite effect. And I think I can solo these out. Oop, not like that. And it's just a wash of reverb there, but it really kind of helps things widen up. So let's do before and after effects and reverb. And let me solo the guitars. So bring in the effects first. Now the reverbs. So it just kind of brings it out. It brings that extra depth, extra spread. Hey, Brent, how's it going? Brent, meet Mike. Mike, meet Brent. Who else is in the chat? Is it really just me? It can't be just me. There has to be other people that are watching this. I see 4 people. One of them's being shy. So, next guitar is this in the riffy riff section. And then he goes into some chords. So what I do for this is I leave all my EQ is taken care of on the master folder, and I just add a LA2A and of course JS saturation because you can never have too much saturation. And this one I'm hitting a little bit harder. Get those chords a little bit untamed. You know, those things. And then once he starts playing chords, he kind of backs off of it. So it's barely hitting the compressor at all. So we have that, and that is it for the guitar sounds. We have the same thing towards the end of the song. Because every guitar solo needs your same guitarist playing a part underneath you at the same time. Next thing is the guitar solo. I struggled on this a lot, and I put it in a separate folder than the guitars because I didn't want to process by the same things. When we originally did this guitar solo, we had the same 4 tracks as before with the SM57 and the Rode mic on the same cabinet. The problem with that was, and then there's a wah. So if you want to take a really good guitar sound and completely destroy it, add a wah onto it, because oh my God. There's a reason they call him Crybaby Waz too. When we first start, we have what I call the chicken riff, and that is both channels hard pan left and right. And you almost can't, it's almost painful to listen to it without anything else because of the weird frequencies the wah puts in. So I had to do more to this than I normally would a guitar. Normally his guitars sound amazing. I have to do very little. So I put the 1073 again. I actually did a high cut of 4 dB here and a mid. Normally I boost the mids on guitars at 1.6K. I actually cut it at 4.8K by 3 dB. And then I added some lows at about 220 just to kind of give it more beef. And then I did the high pass filter down at 80. When I did it on 160, it was entirely too much. I did some saturation on here. I just chose a preset of lead guitar, and then I had to change some of the recording levels. And I did some more saturation. I'm trying to tame off a lot of those highs, a lot of those harsh things. And then I added it to a couple sends. I added it to my vocal saturation bus, which we'll get to in vocals. I added it to the verb, and then I added to both the left and right verbs at the same time to try to widen up the sound. So when we go from here, what did I just do here? We go from here. We're coming into the solo here. You hear how it just collapses to the middle, and the whole thing in the mix, it almost falls apart. In fact, let's play it in the mix here. Basically the same spot. For me, it was just too much collapsing to the middle, collapsing to mono. And even though there's some other guitar going on and I put keys over to the right and things like that, it was too much for me. So what do you want? Everyone say hi to Matt. Mike, meet Matt Huber, but not the Matt Huber that you know, the Matt Huber that I know. Everybody else is like, what the hell just happened? So Matt Huber, my friend Mike, who's Let's Talk About Reaper, plays in a band with a guy named Matt Huber. As far as I know, you guys aren't the same person. So anyway, guitar solo. You know what? It's probably time for, now that Matt's here. Someone stole all the toilets from the local police station. Police have nothing to go on. Anyway, what I did is I added both my right and my left room reverbs to this channel. And I wanted to emphasize those. I kind of wanted to spread out those guitars all the way to the left and right. So with the verb on now, here we have this. So it still kind of collapses to mono, but not as much, and that made me happier. And then the only thing I did on here was I did a high pass and a low or a high shelf at 9K and dipped 2 dB out of it on the left side to kind of compensate for some of the things going on there. So that's a guitar solo. I did do some automation here where I took the because it's the same channels here that are playing the same parts, but I just did some automation for panning. So I'd pan it 100% or 99% left here because I apparently missed, and then back to center for the solo, and then back to 100% left for the times that what that chicken riff comes in, and then back to center for when the solo is there. We did have, like I said, we had the double mic'd guitar solo. We took it down to just a single SM57, and that actually turned out to be. I almost wanted him to retrack it without the wah because it was so harsh, but with the single SM57, that kind of really helped. All right. Matt can play a mean fart gun. Yes, he can. If anyone else is out there from the MASL world, they know what that means. Otherwise, my music friends will have no idea. This is weird, like worlds colliding. We got like the soccer world and the music world, and we're doing a song that I've played on our soccer videos for our live stream, and I'm doing a live stream for the music guys. So for both of you who haven't subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button, and there's a link to buy me a Coke. I have one. I have another one over here somewhere too. See, Mike's cool trick where you take the camera. And now I just touched my camera, so I probably screwed up the focus. All right, next we are on to keyboards. For those of you who've seen some of my songs and some of the things I've done, you'll find this looks different because there's only one keyboard track. What I ended up doing is telling my keyboardist, hey, it would be really cool as if you could do like a new master sounds kind of thing and have one sound to the whole song. And put him up to a challenge, and I said, but you can make things really complex, or as long as they fit the song, you can do basically whatever you want. And normally he gave me a song once with 15 keyboard tracks. I think Under the Moonlight has a dozen or 15 in there. And yeah, that was ridiculous. But they all worked and they all fit. But this one keyboard track. Now he brought in as a stereo track. So the first thing I did is I took the stereo width down to 50. I'm going to do a video soon about LCR panning. Normally we try to just do left, center, right. But we're finding that those 50% holes in between all the way here and all the way here are a nice place to put keyboards. So with a stereo track, if I put the width at 50%, that kind of takes it out. And if you right click on your pan knob here, you can change the pan mode from the project default, which is stereo, which is the one single one, to the stereo pan, which brings this extra button in here where you can do the width. So that's how I managed to do that. So some of the keyboards just alone. Go back here. So he's putting a lot of little licks in between the music and in between the songs. When we get to the end of this, I'll play it another time and mute my mic so you can actually hear the whole song. What I did for his keys, I brought up the SSL channel. I did a high pass at 70, low pass at somewhere 11K. And then I put a whole bunch of highs on here. So let's play this without this on and without the reverb. You notice it's really muddy and so let me explain the Coke thing. There's a site called buymeacoffee.com, and I don't drink coffee. Mike likes coffee. He drinks coffee all the time, and I wanted to have some way that people could send me extra if they wanted to. Not that I don't, well, I guess I do ask for it for every video, but Brent is the first person to send me a Coke, by the way. There's no way to change the amount, and since coffee is like $5 a cup these days, that's just their amount. Coffee is $5. So I decided, let me just change the site to say Coke instead of coffee, because I didn't know what else to do. And I didn't want to set up like a PayPal or a Patreon, or, pay me monthly for me to not send you any extra videos like the one guy we know. And so I decided to do Coke. It's still letsbuymeacoffee.com. I could probably put a redirect somewhere like on my website to it, but whatever. Anyway, keyboards, they sound really muddy and low and cheap sounding. Remember when we talked about bass and I said it was sounded cheap in like the 300 hertz area? It's cheap sounding. So I'll take the volume down. So when I did the SSL channel, I did a giant bump here of 9.5 dB at 5K. I did another 9 dB bump at 1.65. I took out some of the low cheapy stuff at 280, 3 dB there. And I did a little bump of almost 3 dB at like 130. And then I used some compression on this. So before and after this, it's going to be a giant volume bump, so it's hard to do that. It's going to be much louder. But here's before and I'll do after. This SSL channel works amazing on keyboards, synths. How do I know when someone gives you one? I get like there's like lights that flash in my room. It does like this. Okay, no, it doesn't. But I get an email. Did I get an email yet? No. No emails. Oh, Geo said he was watching. He just didn't understand anything. That makes two of us, my friend. But anyway, SSL channel on. I gotta stop being sidetracked by the chat that I need to keep track of so that I don't lose the chat while I do. I'm confused. What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back? A stick. That's all the jokes I got, folks. I have one more. It's about a Napoleon, but I will save that for a video in the future. Let me see if I can pull up some. Okay, anyway, where were we? SSL channel on keyboards and synth sounds. You can, these two, this green band and the red band, the Christmas bands, do really amazing jobs at making a dull, it can be a synth, it could be a piano, it can be like an organ like this, it could be a Rhodes piano. It really makes those frequencies stick out. It makes that sound stick out at those frequencies. And of course, the compressor is like top notch. And I'm not doing much compression here. It's 3 dB of compression. But it just makes it alive and it turns it up. And my theory on, you just saw my video yesterday on go-to plugins. And if you haven't, go look at it. If you don't understand it like Geo did, that's too bad. Go watch it anyway. My go-to plugin for, and I actually didn't mention this in my video yesterday because I thought of it now. So my go-to plugin or compressor for like distorted things, either like chordal pianos or organs or distorted guitar, is the LA2A. And then my go-to compressor for more staccato or non-distorted things like a vocal or bass or like a piano is an 1176. So here I just put the LA2A on, and it's not really doing a whole lot. It's catching some of those note changes. And then I add it to my room reverb. Enough that you can hear it. And you may wonder why I have a keys folder when there's only one track. It's because there were a couple things in here that were recorded a little differently. There's a distortion on, I believe, here. No. No. Somewhere in here there's a distortion, and I thought I would have to split those out to different tracks to process them differently, but I didn't. The only other thing I did on keys here, and I haven't gone into really a lot of automation, but the keys, this middle section here, there's a lot of things going on here. There were some of these beam, 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 beam that he was doing, and they were cutting away from the guitar parts and especially the solo. So I'd use volume automation to just kill a lot of those. So here's the track with the automation in it during this like solo part. Like that part is really annoying. So that's what I did for automation there. Took a bunch of parts that, instead of just cutting the part out, figured we would still leave it in so you could maybe hear it a little bit, but then I would just kind of bring it back up during the parts you want to hear. So that takes keyboards out of the equation. And I think we are on to the last part, which is the vocals. As you can see here, actually this isn't bad for us. 15 vocal tracks, including 3 folders, so 12 vocal tracks total. Dylan doubles his leads. So he'll sing the part twice, and we'll put those up the middle. And I did a bunch of automation. You can see the faders are going to be in read mode here. So just play some of the regular vocals in here.
Let's go home. Let's go home.
This is almost like a chorus.
Let's go home. Let's go.
You hear where really the verse is?
Everybody's strange. They're all insane.
So lead vocal, I'll do this first. And why are we over Q wave? So, you know what? Let me backtrack. So what I do is I do EQ on each. I create a folder for each of the singers. So Dylan sings lead in this song. Ray sings backgrounds in this song. I'll create a folder for each of them so that I can EQ just the folder. So my EQ here is also on the wrong screen. I do a high pass filter at where are we? 130. But my vocals are really 3 or 4 EQ moves, and that's it. High pass filter, I cut where like the chesty, woofy, woof woof kind of sound is. No, I will not do that again. Don't ask. And then I will boost somewhere in the highs. Sometimes I boost with a band. Sometimes I boost with a high shelf. Here happened to be 130 high pass filter, 130 hertz. 280-ish is right around where Dylan's like woofy wolf voice is. And then 3300 band for a bump. I am adding this to a parallel compression track for vocals, and I'll do that very, very similar to how I'll do drums. I'll send both of the singers all the way over there, and then if we just, I'll play the first verse here. This is just a parallel compression.
Let's go home.
It's super
Let's go.
super compressed. You can see like all cranked all the way up.
Let's go home.
And then I put an EQ, just a high pass and a low pass filter just to cut off the rumbles in the high end. But I do that, and then I'll blend it in. Like right here, it's like down at negative 17 dB, so it's really not. What did I say that you needed to take a clip of? This is going to be recorded forever, for the entirety of time on the internet webs. But yeah, then I blend that into the vocals in here, like negative 17 dB, so you really can't. It's very, very quiet on it by itself. So, and I'll usually add 100. I'll add this as 100%, and I'll do it as a pre-fader send because otherwise you can get a little bit of delay or latency in your parallel compression. So onto the individual tracks then. For all my vocals, it's going to be, it looks like a lot going on here because there kind of is a lot, but it's EQ, compression, saturation, de-esser. Please hold. I'm going to embarrass whoever's sending me a message right in the middle of my live stream. Oh. Matt and Gio, I know who Brett Michael is. I'll tell you guys later. Former goalkeeper in St. Louis from this past season. Anyway, where was I? I would say I got sidetracked, but I really don't have a track, so that it's just like all over the place. Matt, how do you do Napoleon? On the individual, so vocals are going to be EQ, compression, saturation, de-essing, and effects. Effects can be delay, they can be reverb. I usually will put the reverb on the vocal bus, which I've done here. Another thing I did on my vocal bus is just a high pass filter at 100. I do that when I start editing vocals because you can hear a lot of like the pops. Even with a pop filter, you can hear like the plosives, or you can hear somebody tapping their foot on the ground and it's picking up through the mic stand all the way up. So I put a 100 hertz high pass filter on the main vocal folder, and I just leave it there. I don't even bother. And then I add vocal saturation and my room reverb on my vocal bus itself. The vocal saturation, let me just play a little bit of that in the same part where I am.
Let's go home. Let's go.
This Abbey Road saturator is great on vocals. Brent, don't go by this just because I just said that, please. And I just leave like a default setting on here. Kind of edit it to what I want, but I mix that in the same way that I do parallel compression, where actually I left this at 0 dB because I thought it sounded really good. But what I'll do is I will let me get my solos here. I will take this at 100% and then I will bring in the fader to match, but it sounded so good with everything at 100% all up that I just left it. So anyway, we'll get to the lead vocal effects here. So I double stack compressors. I have gone back and forth between Arvox by Waves, the 1176 by Waves, and the LA2A by Waves as compressors. I'll always double stack, but I change up how I do it based on what I feel at the time, what I feel it sounds like, and just the overall how it sounds. In this one, I did the 1176 with a 12:1 ratio, but I'm only grabbing peaks. Like you can see, this is barely hitting 1.
Let's go home.
Every once in a while, I'll get
Let's go home.
3 or so. And what that'll do is that'll take all your peaks and kind of just do this. And then I hit it with 1176 or the LA2A, and I hit this a lot, like 10, 7 to 10 dB of gain reduction.
Let's go home.
And that just really smooths out the performance. I do a lot of vocal editing, and I did one of my videos, I did a mix breakdown for Under the Moonlight. It's on my channel, not my channel. I have a video editing or a vocal editing track out there where I go in through kind of split and move things around before I do anything with them. Go watch that. That'll help. I like the wave sibilance for a de-esser because it has a look ahead feature and it's like really easy to set up.
Let's go.
Every time it ducks here is when it's de-essing.
Let's go home. Let's go home. Let's go.
You can hear that on Let's, it really kind of kills it. And then, because no one's perfect, this is going to look like a complete mess over here. Sorry. My monitors apparently just show up anywhere they want. I needed to tune a couple vocals, and I'm shaming Dylan right now, live on the internet. I needed to tune a couple, so I did some manual correction here. And normally I will tune this well before, and I print it to the track, but I found there are a couple in here after the fact that just didn't come up in the regular editing process, so they came in later. Sorry, Dylan, I had to do it, but it sounds good now. And then I added to my long verb, I added to a slap delay, I added to a tape slap delay, and I added to a long delay. This is maybe overkill. It kind of almost sounds overkill for all this, but let me show you what all these do. So the verb long, let me do this.
Let's go.
Sorry.
Let's go home. Let's go home.
And then we have the slap. I'll do this alone.
Let's go home. Let's go home.
And this is just redelay with a stock vocal slapback. Set it up to 8th notes, messed around with things a little bit, and then I added the pseudo stereo to make it 100% width. And then we have this tape slap, which is Waves H delay in like just a tape delay preset.
Let's go home.
Like that wobbly,
Let's go.
almost like that Rhodes piano speaker, if you know what I'm talking about. Not the Rhodes, like the Leslie speaker, just very, very, very tame. So that's the lead vocal. Double vocal has almost the same things on it, but I went down to like the RVox instead of 1176, and I only added it to reverbs and the slap and not the regular delay. We get into this track. These two tracks in the what we call the slap verse, which is it's a bass slap and not a delay slap. So we're slapping just all over the place here. This is a little bit different sounding vocal. It's very tight with no reverb on it.
Cause everybody's posting and posing, snapshot of a wish, but the story's old.
And that I wanted to keep it very, very tight, but still give that delay to it. So it doesn't have like an echo like a reverb, but it still has a little bit of a delay on it. Then we have this echo sound, which is kind of a cool. I'll play the same thing again. You can hear the echo.
Cause everybody's posting and posing, snapshot of a wish, but the story's old.
So what I did for this is I used the same compressor. It's over. I don't know why all these are opening up way over there. So I did the telephone vocal effect, which I did a video on a couple of weeks ago. High pass all the way up at 400 something, low pass all the way down at 2400, and then a big mid bump at like 1100. And you can move this around anywhere in between there. That gives it that hollow sounding like you're on an analog connection telephone. I did double stack the compressors using the same method because what I did is I just copied the track over. Same sibilance. I used JS saturation, and I use this Lufticus, which is a Mag EQ4, which is like this $3,000 piece of hardware device, or like a $900 plugin or whatever it is. But this one's free. I did a video on this in my Vocal Air video, which was the last week's video. And I just did a 20K high boost of 3 dB. And then for the delay, I used redelay or JS delay with tempo length. And I just edited so there's a couple of these in here. Let me just do this echo part. Kind of zoom in here. So I kind of muted it, or I kind of bigger. I did a fade in to kind of get rid of the first attack, so that it only comes in on. It doesn't come in on the first note. And the same for the third. So I kind of just lined it up so that it came in after the first vocal, and it has that cool like telephone like effect on there. I love using the telephone effect. You'll hear me. It's all over the place in music these days. Almost every genre is using it. And then Dill has some background vocals here. And I just made those completely dry with no reverb because there's a lot going on there. And he has this low octave. High octave, I forgot about this. So we were done recording all the vocals. I was in the mixing process. And Dylan's like, where's the vocal where I sang it? And he sang this goofy sounding thing. And I said, I don't have that on all the tracks you sent me. When Dylan records vocals, I get like 45 tracks. And I then have to play Sherlock Holmes to figure out which ones I have. So what we did is we took a copy of this track above, and I pitch shifted it up 8 semitones. And it sounds like the attack of like the Munchkins. It sounds completely absurd, but when you put all the vocals together, and when you put like really all like with rays and everything, you can't really even tell what's going on. So that's just a fun trick. Like, just so you know, your background vocals don't have to sound all that perfect in order to get them to fit in a mix. And I'll show you Ray's here in a second. So Ray does all the backgrounds in this song. Solo his out.
Let's go home. Let's go home. Everybody's straight.
And then we also have both the Oh, we have the Ray Munchkin voice, which we just took this one and copied it. And what's funny is Ray usually has a higher voice, but for some reason he did the lower vocal in this one. So there's some call and answer stuff in here.
Notify their minds. Validate the hollow.
And for background vocals, for the most part, I'll use one compressor. I did double on a couple of the other ones that Dylan did because I wanted to get his more in control. But for the most part, I'll just use the RVox because it's really easy to use. I'll just bring the compression down or the threshold down until I'm getting
Notify their minds.
6 to 12 dB of gain reduction or somewhere in there. And then I'll add the sibilance on for de-essing. Every once in a while, I'll add an effect. I added a chorus on this one.
Notify their minds.
You can kind of hear it. It's very, very subtle. And then we have the Ray Corndog channel, which we wanted to do an effect almost like a flanger on it.
Gotta go, gotta go. Gotta go, gotta go.
So if I play this whole thing in the context of the mix,
Cause everybody's posting and posing. Snapshot of a wish, but the story's old. I can't stand all the detail, it's a fail. Baby, let's go home.
so we did for that, we did a phaser and a flanger on this. So first I did the RVox just to bring it down. I did sibilance, and then I used this GTR effect, which is a stomp box effect, and I added this phaser pedal in. And then I have a send, which has a phaser on it that I use for something else. And this one is a very similar setup, which it's a phaser and some distortion on it. So both of those soloed.
Gotta go, gotta go. Gotta go, gotta go.
I did a stereo width that kind of goes back and forth. You get a little bit of distortion in there. And then the same thing as later on, he does another call and answer.
Down.
So that is it for vocals. What did I not cover here? We're at an hour and a half time, so I need to wrap this up soon. Master fader. I start out with, let me find a good spot to do this here. I start out with an SSL comp, 2-to-1 ratio, full attack, low release. Sometimes I use auto release depending on how it sounds. And I want no more than 3-ish dB of gain reduction. But what I do is I take the makeup gain and I pull it all the way down. And that way I never run into clipping issues on my master fader. That's a sweet corn dog. Thanks, Matt. That's a trick I learned from some dude in some video on the internet somewhere. I don't remember who I got it from, but because I can't remember, that's my trick. I made that up, so there we go. I did the Pultec for just the dB or the 2 dB on the low end trick, and I added a 3 dB of a little boost at this. Where the hell am I? This high frequency at 12K. I do a little bit of EQ. I don't do much. I do a very, very slight high pass filter. This is at 16 hertz, so it's almost not doing anything. I do a slight boost at 60 to kind of bring that kick. That boost will change anywhere from 60 is about the lowest. I'll put it up to almost like 180 or so to get the kicks and the bass and everything boosted in there. I'll do a healthy 3 dB cut at 300. Knowing that this is cutting everything, and then I'll do a slight shelf of 1 or 2 dB at 88K or so. This is 8500. It wouldn't be a mix without Kramer tape. There is a preset called Mastering Clean and Open I really like. This Greg Wells GW Mixcentric plugin it's voodoo. It's mystery magic. Let me play this for you with it off. Actually, let me play with you on and I'll turn it off and listen to how the mix just falls apart.
Cause everybody's posting and posing. Snapshot of a wish, but the story's old. I can't stand all the detail, it's a fail. Baby, let's
it's the plugin is a one knob. There's this one thing, and I usually start out with a position right about here, and I'll never go past 1 o'clock on the dial here, and then I just bring out the gain. I bring down the gain to match, but it adds high and mid frequencies. Of course, it's proprietary. They're never going to tell you what they're adding, but it does it in a way. I think it uses the same kind of philosophy as like an exciter does, along with EQ, along with maybe a touch of saturation, harmonic saturation there. And without it, you heard the mix just kind of fall apart. So I put this on my master bus. Like once I get everything, I'll bring in all my tracks. I'll do my analog goodness. I'll gain stage everything, get all that set up. All my editing is always already done. I'll do a very quick pan and fader mix, and I'll add all these plugins on. The only others I have on here for this video specifically, I put an Ultra Maximizer with just a 3 dB drop, just to boost the volume of Reaper up more so you guys can hear, especially the quieter things. I will not mix with that on. I will also use that when I send out mixes to the band for review. I'll just use it to boost the volume so I don't have to run it through anything else. And then I have this MV meter too, which is just a VU meter that I look at every once in a while. But I mainly mix through these first 5 plugins here when I'm doing my mixes. I do have a bit of automation on the master fader. At the end, I do a fade out, and I did the fade out in a number of different ways. I left all the instruments. I did it in the master, but it was hard to like gauge where we should start the fade out. We spent way too long going on the fade out because the guitarist had to make sure you had the perfect right note. Oh, nope, you need one fade out, you need to start one guitar note less or one note, it's this kind of thing. I just put it on the master fader in the project so it's much easier to work with. And I didn't even fade all the way down. I faded down to -30, and then I faded the rest out in the mastering process. A lot of these, look at you can hear, a lot of these sends that I'm using are using these analog plugins, which cause a lot of hiss. You can actually see a lot of the room mic. Let me actually go into the song. Let's just look at this. I mean, these things are hissing away here. So I just do some volume automation to cut those out until they're needed. And I'll also do that like on the whole drum bus, the whole bass folder. Sometimes guitars, usually not. Usually those are the 3 that I do it on. I do have some automation on the room mic in the drums because in the beginning here, let me turn this off. The drums do these fills. And when everything's going on, you can actually hear that kind of echoey. Almost reminds me of like if you hit a gong, the echo of the gong. This one's even worse. You hear all the cymbals and everything. So I do just a send volume to the verb, and I take all the verb out of there. So the verb kind of just... I don't want it perfectly dry, but I don't want it... I want the natural echo of the kit and not just to cut it completely out. What other automation did I do that's interesting? That's the key. It has to be interesting. Not interesting, it's not worth it. I bumped up a bass fill here because... So here's a tip. If you ever want to highlight a part, bump up when the part first starts and then bring it back to the normal mixed volume. So this works well for like keyboard riffs. If you have not a guitar solo, but like a guitar lick in the middle of a song that you want to emphasize and you want it to accentuate, bump up the volume with automation like I did here in the bass. And the user's ear, listener's ear will naturally go towards that. And even when you bring the volume down, it's already keyed in on those frequencies, it'll stay with it. So I did this this cool like Fat Albert type bass thing here. I'll just play it for you, the whole thing. One more time. In fact, sample that. And that'll bring out the that'll tune the listener's ear to that sound. And plus it sounds cool, so that's why I did that. All right, what else do we have for automation? I told you about the guitar automation here, where I'm going to, I have some pan automation for certain parts. I panned the verb. I have 100% off and then turn it on during a solo. I pan out one of the solo tracks. I showed you the keyboard automation. The other thing I did on keyboards, I showed you that I did 50% width for the regular keyboards. In the solo, I wanted to get more, I wanted to have things sound wider. So I took the keyboards and moved them from 50 to 100% width here. As soon as the guitar solo starts, it then goes to 100% width. And coming out of the guitar solo, it's back to 50%. Just to kind of make that guitar solo a little bit wider. I did the same thing at the end too. I showed you the crazy automation there. I have a lot of vocal automation for, hey, can we make this note quieter? Can we make this note louder? Or this part quieter, or this part louder? Some stuff in here. Bunch of like equivalent of fader writing. Some of the vocals in here. And that is really it. I think I've covered everything. So, any questions? We will now open up the floor to any questions anyone may have. I'm watching my chat and I'm not seeing anything because the chat is on a delay, so I wouldn't see it anyway. So Elephant walks into a bar and orders a drink. The bartender completely ignores him. No? All right. I will open it up for another 20 seconds while I sit here and babble to myself. What's the difference between a hippo and a Zippo? A hippo is really heavy and a Zippo is a little lighter. John Tidy, you showed up just as we're about to leave. Thank you for stopping by. You can go back and watch the 1.5 hour long babble session of this video where I got sidetracked everywhere there was a way to get sidetracked. And I went over a mix review, but I appreciate you stepping by. I really appreciate it. If you aren't subscribed to John Tidy's blog and YouTube channel and Facebook group, it is the Reaper blog. And John, seriously, thank you for coming by. One more joke. Oh, that's disgusting. Did you hear about the one about the constipated mathematician? He had to work it out with a pencil. The dog joke? Which dog joke? Due to the quarantine, I'll only be doing inside jokes? No, that's not it. What's the dog joke? Matt, do you have a question? What is the dog joke? I can't remember what the dog joke was, sorry. All right, Matt has a question. He's not going to ask it, he's just going to keep typing in that he has a question. He's going to make me sit here looking like an... Well, I shouldn't say that because I already look like it. That's besides the point. Should we end? What I'll do is I'll end the video with playing the song and I'll just cut it out when I'm done then. And I'll mute my mic so you guys don't have to hear that. Waiting for Matt's question. Paging Matt's question. Is there a Matt's question in the room? Matt's question? Question, Matt? What email? Hang on. Oh, look at that. I got somebody bought me a Coke. Oh, Gerg Sudi bought me 3 Cokes. Thanks, Gerg. Wait. No. I don't know if I can say this one. I mean, I can, but... So, my girlfriend's dog died, so I got her an identical one. She got even more upset and shouted at me, what am I supposed to do with 2 dead dogs? Thank you, Mike. I forgot about that one. Usually I don't steal jokes. Wait a minute, what am I saying? Usually I'll always steal jokes, but if somebody sends me a messenger, I'm only 90% likely to steal them as opposed to if I see them crossing online somewhere. All right, thank you guys. I'm gonna go mute my. I'm gonna change my scene again. Oh boy, you wouldn't want that on the screen. I will mute my mic and I will play the beginning of this song. And until next time, have a great week.
With the thumbs upside.